been bamboozled. Not only are tithes not for today, it's actually a sin to take or pay tithes. And why? Because if I were to give some so-called preacher, these false preachers, tithes, it's like saying that he's my priest. And he's not my priest because Jesus is my priest. So, start off with, we're going to read some verses. And first, we are reading Hebrews 2:17. I have a paper here that I'm going to put a picture at the end, and I highly suggest you sit down and read all these verses. But Hebrews 2:17. Now, the thing to know about Hebrews is actually written to the Christian Jews. So Jews that were saved, it's written to them. Thus the name Hebrews. So Hebrews 2:17. Wherefore, in all things it behooved him, meaning Jesus, it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. So here is showing us that Jesus is now a high priest, and a high priest is a mediator, a go-between. So in the Old Testament, the priest was the go-between between God and the children of Israel. So now we don't have a human priest. We have Jesus, who is the go-between between us and God. So now we're going to read also in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14 through verse 16. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So this, in verse 14, clearly says that Jesus is our high priest. So if I were to give tithes to some so-called preacher, and that's like saying that Jesus isn't my high priest. It's like saying that what Jesus did doesn't count. It's a sin. And when Jesus died, and we're going to read John's account, John 19:30. When Jesus died, well, let's just read it before we say 19:30, John 19:30. When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished," and he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. It is finished. Right there, all the priests got a pink slip. They were all fired. And to see more on this, we're also going to go to Matthew's account, Matthew chapter 27, verse 50 and 51. Let's see here. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. So the veil was rent, which the veil separated the Holy of Holies that only the high priest could go into once a year from the rest of the temple. And when that was not no flimsy piece of fabric, it was heavy material curtain that only God could have ripped it like that. So when God ripped it like that, he was saying that everyone comes in now. But when that was ripped, just like when he said in John 19:30, it is finished, all the priests were fired. There is no need for them no more. Jesus is our high priest. Jesus is my high priest. So I'm not going to give tithes to some so-called preacher. And let me be clear, I'm not running down Christianity. I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian. But what I don't believe in is these false lies. And why do they preach money? Why is it tithes? Why not circumcision? Why don't they preach circumcision? That was in the Old Testament. Tithes is only mentioned 7 times in the New Testament, mostly in the negative. And it's mentioned 39 times in the whole Bible. Circumcision is mentioned 55 times in just the New Testament, whereas tithes, like I said, 7 times, and mostly in the negative. So why don't they preach circumcision? Because they can't make money from it. But tithes, people come every week, they give 10% of their income. And part of it's the people's fault. They have the Bible right here, and they can read it for themselves. So, don't be scammed. Tithes are not for today, and not only are they not for today, it's a sin to give tithes. So, do your due diligence. I'm going to put this paper. I want you to sit down and read these verses, and if you have any questions, let me know. We'll go over them in future videos. And always pray God, ask God to help you to understand what you're reading. Don't just accept anything of what anyone says just because they said it. What I'm saying, look in the Bible and see it for yourself. What anyone tells you, don't always just accept it. Like, let's see, we're going to finish off with a verse here. Acts chapter 17, verse 11. So we are parting verse. These, Acts chapter 17, verse 11. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. So these in Berea were more noble than those in Thessalonica. Not only did they receive the word with all readiness of mind, but they searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. So they didn't just accept what Paul was telling them. They read it for themselves. That's what y'all need to do. Don't just accept it because it's said. You've got to see it for yourself, not because I'm telling you and not because anyone else is telling you. We'll be back with more soon.